All right, 6 o'clock. We'll call the meeting to order with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
What's that? No, yeah. Well, good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Monday, December 4th, 2023 Credit River City Council meeting. We'll begin with approving or amending the agenda. Is there any changes or additions to the agenda tonight? Otherwise, I would take a motion to approve.
So move.
Thank you, Jay.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Leroy. So we got a motion and a second to approve the agenda as written. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Deputy Fearson, good evening.
Quick as a cat over there, isn't it?
Right, I think he was surprised that it came up so quick. If you hold that button down for a little bit there till that green light comes on, you're good, yeah. Then
How's everybody doing today?
we're well, John, how are you?
Not too bad.
Good.
So I'll say as usual, our high volume calls are the alarms and medicals. We did seem to have a little bit of an uptick in accidents for November. No injury accidents, but there were quite a few called small bumper to bumper accidents. Otherwise, like I said, the vast majority are burglar alarms, fire alarms, and then the medicals as well. So nothing real big on our end. We are still working with the rest of the deputies on the east side with our extra patrols regarding some of the motor vehicle theft and stuff that we had the previous month. That isn't going to happen again. Any questions from the council?
So that motor vehicle theft mostly related to parks, the regional parks?
Yeah, there's only been a couple of, we gotta refer to them as the smash and grabs. There's been a couple of them. We had the motor vehicle theft down out of the territory.
Oh,
Earlier this month, so
okay.
we're kind of working on that. It started in Lakeville. They had a bunch of car break-ins and it worked its way across into Credit River on that south side and ended up with a vehicle out of it. So that's kind of that area that we're working, trying to make sure we have extra patrols going on overnight and catching anybody that would look suspicious. So,
John, was this something where the car was unlocked or did they break in or?
car was unlocked.
Okay.
So reminder to lock vehicles, keep personal items, key fobs, that type of thing, bring them inside with you. So, so for the report wise, that's really all we've got. We are in that time of the year again. The sheriff's office has opened the enrollment for our Citizens Academy. I will forward the information over again so that you guys can get it attached, but it runs February and March. And it's a great opportunity for anybody 18 or older that lives within the county to come, and every week it's a different topic, goes through all the different portions of the sheriff's office. We get to tour the jail, our training facility, our canine comes in, our drone team comes in, investigators. So it's a great experience if you want to kind of see how our office runs and kind of the different aspects that we have.
Yeah, I took it several years ago and it was a lot of fun. Really interesting.
Yeah, I took it before deciding to go back to school. That was kind of one of my things that got me excited about going to school for law enforcement. So highly recommend it. It's free of charge, it doesn't cost anything. So, and I will, like I said, I'll get that information over to you guys so you guys can get it on your Facebook page and people can register from there.
So anybody else have any questions or comments for Deputy?
No, thank you.
All right. John, I think you're good.
You guys have a
We
good
appreciate
rest of
you
the meeting.
and stay safe out there.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll move into consent agenda. Those items on the council agenda which are considered routine or non-controversial are included as part of the consent agenda. Unless a council member specifically requests that an item on the consent agenda be removed and considered separately, items on the consent agenda are considered under one motion, a second, and a vote. Any item removed from the consent agenda shall be placed at the end of general business. Tonight on consent agenda, we've got the November 20th, 2023 council meeting minutes, the 2024 City Council and Planning Commission meeting schedule, Resolution 2023-36 designating polling locations for 2024, Ordinance 2023-12 regulating the use of cannabis and THC products in public spaces, and claim approvals. Is there anything on consent agenda that anybody would like to pull and consider separately?
No.
If not, I would take a motion to approve.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Leroy.
Second.
Thank you, Abe. So we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Open forum. The public forum is intended to afford the public an opportunity to address concerns to the council. The public forum will be no longer than 30 minutes in length, and each presenter will have no more than 5 minutes to speak. Topics of discussion are restricted to local governmental topics rather than private or political agendas. The council may discuss but will not take formal action on public forum presentations. Commissioner Wolf, good evening.
Good evening. After you said that, I don't know if I can say anything anymore. So anyhow, a couple things tonight. We got a big topic coming up at the county on Thursday. Our meeting got moved to Thursday because there's a Minnesota counties meeting in Minneapolis this week. So, but Sand Creek wants to develop a little piece of land, about 3 or something 100 acres, 400, which is about 150 developable, and it's right next to Jordan. And Jordan wanted to annex it, and so it's a little bit of a battle. But both sides, I see, Sand Creek wants it. They've already got the guy, Messabrink and Henches. They've already got, sounds like the buyers for these pieces of land, like what they had over there in Newmarket Township. They've already got buyers, and they plans, and it has sat there for years. And then they bought it and asked Jordan about it, and Jordan said, "We don't really want it." And also they came with an agreement to develop it, and then now they want it. So anyhow, we need to make a comp plan amendment for that. So that's what's going on with that. We're looking at our levy of about 3.99% at this point, and I think that's about all I have tonight, unless anybody has any questions.
Perfect. Anybody have any questions for Commissioner Wolf?
No, all of our road projects are done, so we're happy about that too. So anyhow, all right.
All right. Thanks, Tom.
You. Yep.
Appreciate it. Anybody else for open forum tonight? Hearing none, we'll close open forum and move into number 6, public hearings, the 2024 budget truth and taxation presentation. And we will start with our finance director, Dominique Hill, with a presentation about the 2024 budget and levy.
Council and residents, can you hear me okay?
We can.
It's on. Okay, I guess in my preamble, I would like to say it's been great having Kathy here as the new administrator. She's been super engaged in the budget, provided direction, strategy, and a fresh perspective. So Kathy, chime in if I'm speaking too financial and we need different words, but anyways, so basically this is the truth in taxation presentation, what we are proposing as the final. And I would say we have had probably 6 to 8 discussions between council meetings and work sessions. So I hope you've been able to watch or look at materials with that. So this should not be new news. It's just an ongoing discussion, and we're coming to the end with the final. So anyways, with that, we'll go to the first slide, Kathy. So here we're just talking about the Credit River tax capacity. So right now for 2024, the county is valuing things at 15,467,510, and know that they've fine-tuned it a couple of times. So this is what it's sitting at right now. So the one thing we want to talk to you about is the general fund. And for a city, the general fund is probably your bread and butter, your regular activity. So in terms of the last round of changes, so the pertinent things we want to just highlight is that we are adding staffing in this final 2 FTEs, a planner, and actually the planner did start this week. And then we would have a public works employee as well, probably starting in the February timeframe. That's why we're saying 10.5 months. We also have strategic planning, bringing in a consultant to kind of work with the council and the community on where Credit River wants to go or what the plan is. We also have ordinance codification, which is basically we have ordinances, but they're not really organized. So this allows for that. New financial software, our current software system, Banyan, is probably township-ish. So we have to grow up there a little bit and get something a little more robust. We also have, since with the works, there'll be equipment involved. So we have some rent in there to be able to store equipment. We also have an election year. This is an election year, so we have the required days open and all of the salary estimated associated with that. So we have the elections. So we would have 3 elections. Voting is open 18 days prior, kind of that pre-voting. And then we also, this will be the first year that we have 2 precincts. We also want to highlight that in this 2024 budget, we have the fire department full year, whereas last year they were, as opposed to being a part-time, they're full-time, and it was only for 6 months. So we do have that change year over year, where now we have a full year. Also, we added 8,000 for animal control in the public safety area. Public safety kind of covers fire, police, and this new animal control. We have updated the benefits rate. We had originally in the prelim thought we needed to have a 5%. We actually were able to fine tune it down to 3.6%. And then also we're feeling optimistic about our interest. So we increased the forecast in terms of what we think. Currently, we are experiencing a 5% interest rate, which is phenomenal, which is really good. So the funds we do have in the bank are growing at 5%. And then we had a lot of, miscellaneous, reducing something by 500, 400, just a lot of little things as we scrubbed the budget. And then also in the last meeting, the council requested a decrease in the levy of 200,000. Now about half of that, I would say 50-50. Half of that is true reduction or very close. And then the balance coming from reserve funds. So the next slide. General fund revenue sources. So again, we're talking about general. When you take a look at the general fund, this is the money coming in. We're anticipating or estimating that it'll be 3,121,640. So 3,000,001. And we're showing you the components. So the levy is what actually in the tax component of it. So 2,000,000.1 is coming from the levy. Intergovernmental would be funds that we're getting from the state or the county. And then we have permits and fees. That's where people are paying for their permits. So that's a service type revenue item. And then fines and forfeitures, when the police officers are out giving tickets, we get a percentage of that money. It's really small, but it's $7,000. And then we are estimating 200,000 in interest revenue. So, and you can kind of see the chart with the pictures as well. In the general fund, we our expenses are estimated after this last round as $3,015,000. So the components in there, we like to take a look at it so you can see what the pieces are. Personnel and staffing is 21% of that number. Professional services, and that would include our engineer and legal, 23%. Public safety is the largest piece. Again, your fire and your police and the animal control, 33%. And then we have public works. What we're proposing for public works is 14%. And then kind of the rest is miscellaneous at 9%. So again, public safety is our biggest expense. I guess I'd like people to know that. The next slide Kathy added, which kind of, it's hard to look at it year over year because we did intentionally change some of the categories. In the past, we operated as a township, so the majority of the expenses ran through the council, where now we're breaking it out. So like audit goes into finance, and then legal and engineering would go into administration. So we're growing up and becoming a city. I would say we're a toddler. We're coming to kindergarten, maybe, Kathy. Trying. So year over year, it'll look a little goofy. So you see how the council's decreasing, but those expenses in 2024 are moving into migrating to their proper functional area. I would note in the public works side of it, the big change there is the micro surfacing. We did move that into capital because it's very cyclical, and in the general fund we want to have it a little more, less variation, less peaks and valleys. So we moved that one out of there. So that moved into capital. So the next slide, and note on that slide, we're just highlighting some of the items. We have the public works. It kind of merited its own page. So you can see the change. Last year, 2023, we had 800,000 in the budget, and now it's gone to 997. And the bulk of that is changes. We had changes on the police and how they calculate the patrol car expenses and that sort. And then also we have that increase where we only had the full-time people for 6 months, and now we have them for 12 months. So that's that $197,000 of change. So let's talk a little about capital. Kathy, please chime in on the capital side if we need to add some color. So since the preliminary budget, the changes or the fine tuning, it is a bond year in 2024 for our road projects. I don't know if people know, but we have an every 3-year bond cycle to kind of fund our capital projects. So the street improvement coming up, the feasibility report was presented last meeting. The engineer presented it, and the micro surfacing went up by 25,500. So we made that change. And then we were able to get from our municipal advisors that estimate of 45,000, and originally we had ballparked it, I think, at 50,000. So it was somewhat of a reduction, but then we had the increase of the 27.5. Park equipment also increased because we probably need help with installation for the equipment. So it went from 25,000 to 40,000, an increase of 15,000. So on the next page, we have capital projects, so you can kind of see them in their categories. So we have the reconstruct and the overlay, which includes the turn lane, 1,472,000. We do have a repayment to the county on the County Road 27. And then micro surfacing is just a little under 200,000 at 172,000. And that's the expense that I explained, that it kind of bounces all over. So we want it in capital. And this is Kathy's fresh perspective, you know, rather than having it in general where it's kind of bouncing around. We have the parks. So we have plans to have a master plan in terms of what the future would look like for parks. We have restriping, and then also the playground equipment. And we're not sure what that looks like, but as the year goes on, we'll get a proposal together. Then we have stormwater. You can see the different projects we have accounted for. And then we're also hoping to get another speed tracker or speed wagon as well. So the next page is more capital projects. So you can see the public works, what we're planning in terms of equipment, with standing up a works department. And then we have general government. So that's where we're starting to look at the government center. That would be your land and kind of initial architects and just all that. Kathy, chime in if I'm missing something there.
Design costs.
Design. So 800,000, and then City Hall, our air conditioner's giving us problems, and I think we need that because Kathy and I will be crabby. But anyways, and City Hall parking, we need to do some work. And then the bottom two are actually enterprise funds, but they're not created yet. So this is where we would have the water and the wastewater. The initial studies are slated for 2024. So here you can see all these projects and their percentages. So you can see the largest one is streets, and the turn lane improvements, 59%. And then you can just kind of see general government. That would be, again, the City Hall component. So the bulk of the project, or the big dollar, is between general government and streets. And then the next slide kind of gives you an idea or a window in terms of how we would fund these projects. So We do have a turn lane fund. It's a special account where over time developers, we have money collecting, so we have 400,000 there. We are bonding, so you can see the 1,072,000. Park fund is kind of an existing savings type account. And then the levy for capital is 400,000. And assessments would be where residents are paying us back annually for the road project. They usually have 10 years. So that piece of the puzzle is 106,000. So the biggest funding source is the 36,000 for bonds and then the reserves. Now, those reserves are existing balances, and then we have our ARPA funds. And so the council has earmarked the ARPA funds for the government center. So that's about $614,000 to remind everybody about that. So the next piece is the levy. So drum roll, everybody, are we ready? We are, this first slide is showing you revenue. So in total, the revenue, and this excludes bond. So we are anticipating 3.972 in revenue. And of that, the bond component is 3,730, so 69% of that. So the way to look at that is the levy is 69% of the revenue dollar. Now, that's different in other cities because other cities get different aids. So that's unique to us. The next slide shows us the funding for revenue, just a pictorial look at it. And then also we can see on the right, the bond piece of it and how much is coming from reserves. So here we're adding the bond activity. So it's just another picture. Our expenses for the budget, including capital, we're looking at $6.4 million, kind of rounded. And the biggest increase is the capital year over year because we have a road project, and then we also have the governmental side. Those are kind of the big players. The general fund on our expenses, 3,015,000. So we're talking about 189,000. And if you look at the public safety increase, it was 196,000. So we have gone down elsewhere. So you have 7%. So overall, it's an increase of 54%, but the bulk of that is the road project and the government center. So the next slide is the levy, and I guess this is really the drum roll. So the levy piece, we're proposing a levy, a final levy, or originally it was a prelim. So our prelim was higher. So we've been able to fine tune it and have discussions with the council. And so we are proposing a levy of 2.73185. So that would be a 9% increase year over year. Versus our pre-limit was at a 20% increase. So we have rolled up our sleeves, got our pencils out, and we're proposing 9% instead of 20%. Now, I would say the nominal value of the increase is very small. Like when the county talks about 3.99%, if you look at the monetary value of that, it's huge. The dollars are huge. Whereas our percent is high, but our dollar is very tiny. So it's just a different way to look at it. I would say, the general fund, we're decreasing. The council is opting to use reserves for some one-time items. And then our capital levy, I would say, in the past, before 2021, averaged 335,000. So I feel like we're right sizing our capital by going to 400,000 because we had been only dedicating of the levy like 150, 125, 100. So we were kind of low on the capital side. So there's that piece of it. So the next piece, or the way we look at things, is what does it mean in relationship to our tax capacity? Tax capacity preliminary was a 19% increase, and now it's a 17% increase.
Tax rate.
Sorry, tax rate. Sorry.
2023's tax rate was 16.136%, and 2024's will be 17.092%.
Yep, and the preliminary, we had it at 19. Thanks, Kathy. So nominally, I like to look at this slide. So if you took a look at this slide, and let's look at the biggest group is number of properties at 1,209 properties. So what this is saying is that your tax, the nominal value of your tax, is going to go up $100 annually, and it's a change of 9%. Whereas, so like that grid just gives you the sample. So depending on where you sit in that grid, this shows you approximately what your increase. Now it all, like there's other variables involved, like if the valuation in your house changed, you know, that will muddy the waters a little bit, but this gives you a good snapshot. So Kathy had us build, and I don't know if you want to speak to this slide, like what it means exactly, but year over year on the bottom, so the prior year, Kathy mentioned this just a minute ago, we had a tax capacity of 16.14%. And now this final proposal is 17%. So this means an annual tax change based on tax capacity, it's an additional $38. Do you want to add a little more to that, or did I capture it?
I think, as you're looking at this, what this is showing you, if your market value of your home, this is looking at a sample property of just over a $400,000 home. So the estimated market value, if it were to remain steady, we know not every home remains steady from 22 to 23 to 24, but if your market value remained the same across those 3 years, you can see what our tax rate, and that's how it's getting calculated out against your property. In 2022, our tax rate was 15.56. In 23, we're 16.14. And in 24, this budget has us at 17.09%. So you can see from 22 to 23, they had this property would have had a $23 increase. And then in 24, it would be a $38 increase that this property would see based off of this budget.
So the next slide shows our budget process and some of the key milestones. So you can see we've progressed through, and we've kind of been at it since July. So we're at the truth and taxation presentation today. So the next steps would be for the council to get input and finalize. We would do a resolution, prepare the resolution if the numbers are fine, and they would go ahead and adopt the resolution for the levy, and then we would submit it to Scott County. And any questions?
Okay. Thank you.
Kathy can answer all the questions.
Thank you, Tony.
Kidding.
Appreciate the presentation here tonight. Council members, comments, questions?
I do. Do you want to do the public hearing piece first, or can we ask questions now?
Let's do questions from council first.
One question, Dominique.
Sure.
On page 14 of the deck, there's no pages, but go to the 14th. There's an assessment number for capital project funding,
106.
106.
Yep.
That seems, so that's all the projects in the past of people's assessments related to.
Yes, I
previous-
go through and calculate it manually, but the thing you need to understand.
Can I just finish my
Sure,
thought though?
sure.
So that's 106,000. That's for past projects that people
Correct.
chose not to pay upfront. And then is there a component of this year's capital projects where people pay in November? For example, 2 years ago, my property got assessed and I chose to pay upfront, so I didn't have any interest payments. And Shane, last time in our last meeting, there's about $500,000 that'll be
That
assessed to
would
the.
be next year.
Let me finish. $500,000 that people are going to be assessed this year. The people that pay in November of next year of that 500,000, is that in the budget for next year?
Yes.
How much of that 500,000 did you estimate?
Well, we only do it on their piece, so it gets knocked down by 50%.
No, that is the 50%.
That's
According
it.
to Shane's, it's a $1 million projects next year. Shane's said the portion to the property owners is 500.
50. I would have to get back to you. on the
But you
amount.
do have that component in the 106, because that 106 seemed a little light to me, just thinking about what prior projects we've done and this year's project.
It will be light because when we have buy and sells on property, they pay up and they're no longer on
That makes
the
sense.
continuum.
Yeah.
And we have a considerable amount of pay up front, and that's why we have significant balances in our bonds funds, because they
Yeah.
close those out. But I will
So
get back to you
If
on that.
people do pay a considerable amount of property owners do pay upfront $500,000. I mean, that's, if you assume 20% of the people paid upfront, that's $100,000 alone.
We don't calculate it that high because some years it's high
So you
and
think it's
some years
conservative?
low. We usually do it around, yeah, it's conservative.
All right, and what that'll do to us is it'll just build up a reserve for next year then if we have a lot of people paying upfront.
Actually, it doesn't build a reserve for us. That money goes directly into bond repayment. It does not go into a
Okay.
general bucket.
Okay,
So it would go simply to
A
the
prepayment
bond
to the bond?
repayment.
Yeah.
And then on the bond continuum, the minute we're able to pay it early, if the balances dictate, we've done that before, the minute we can pay it early, we will.
okay.
Because it costs us money on the interest end of it.
Yeah.
At
Yeah.
that time, so
Yeah.
that's what.
It saves us money if we prepay. when-
Yeah.
But you can't.
As long as there's no
prepay it immediately.
prepayment penalties.
Right, yeah, there's a penalty up to a certain point.
Yeah.
Right, but Bill, to your point, every year our prepayments have been different.
Okay,
Depends on the project, it
Yeah.
depends on where the project's happening.
Yeah.
And so it's really hard to forecast exactly where that one's gonna land.
all right.
So I do.
That just
do
seemed
it
kind of light, the 106.
Conservatively.
Yeah.
I do it conservatively, but I'll go back and.
Okay.
Pull the pieces and provide you with more detail.
Perfect. Okay,
Thank you.
anybody else comments? No? No?
I did have one other question, Kathy. You saw that this morning. The
when we pushed out the second planner position into the following year, we're still going to get that $95,000 or so reduction in third-party expenditures because we're bringing on the, not planner, project work, the work, public works guy. We're still gonna get that reduction in the third-party costs, I think it was like $95,000.
So when we took off so we had 1.5 public works in the preliminary budget.
Yep.
And that was based off of 1 here for the entire year, the 0.5 basically starting in the June time period and working for a half a year. The projections and what we were looking at for savings, when we started with all of that, I think that was the number kind of we were looking at in the preliminary budget in the work sessions before that, when we were doing the analysis. We do see some savings, but we did have to make adjustments back from preliminary budget to now. When we go back into that preliminary budget number that we had, we did have to make adjustments back to some of those contracts and the dollar figures that we had associated with some of those other areas, just because with one person, there's not as much that we're going to be able to do with just the one person as far as the two. So there's some adjustments that have been made and have been made back, but where we're at today with this, with what we have with the 10.5 months budgeted for one public works person, you're looking at it, there are some cost savings and there's not, and like I said, from preliminary budget to now, you'll see some adjustments have been made in that department.
Okay. So like the lawn care, the mowing ditches, the cutting the trees, the, stuff like that, we had that going away because we had a person coming in. Those things all stayed in the budget when we cut the person in July.
We still have some reduced. We had made various reductions based off of the staffing that council had told us to plan for with preliminary budget. And then at the last work session, when you made those adjustments, we went back in and we've made adjustments to the contract dollars and where we had things associated again. So
I would need to update that slide. It would have changed.
It doesn't look like it changed much. I mean, the expenditures,
a little bit.
but a little bit is a plus or minus $10,000. It's not like 150, 200,000 because the expense levels can change at all. Much.
Well,
so
the expense levels decreased because you took half and head out.
yes, for sure.
Right.
But after you account for that, not much changed. So my assumption was that not much changed from the September
bit.
document,
Yep.
plus or minus 10.
I think the biggest change was the 15,000 in the parks piece.
that was some change. I mean, that's the biggest change that we made, but
Okay.
from there, from what you have on that document, which was preliminary budget. Like I said, then we made some additional reductions with the 1.5, and then we pulled some of those items back with the removal of the 0.5 FTE. So it's kind of been back and forth and all over as we've been going back and forth with where are we going and what are we doing with that one. But yeah, the biggest change you see is we did put on the park equipment, increase the costs there, and that comes from the park fund. So that has a zero impact on the levy.
Right.
That came directly out of the park fund, but just putting some more money in there. With 2 people, there's more that we could probably do towards the installation, and with 1 person, you're not doing much towards that installation. They're coordinating the installation with 1 person. So, kind of looking at some of those items.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, at this time then, I'd like to open up the truth and taxation hearing. This is an opportunity for the public to comment and ask questions on the presentation for the 2024 budget and levy. I'll ask that if you do wish to speak, that you do come to the podium sign in and state your name and make your comments. Yeah, I was gonna ask if we could
Oh,
that
okay,
microphone
okay.
back up there.
Maybe nobody's gonna get up.
Hi, Christy McCoy. I'm just trying to kind of put together some of the numbers here. And so just really asking for clarification, I guess, to start with. You talked about the preliminary, the levy was going up 20%, but then you've dropped it down and it's going up 9%. But then the tax rate was at 19, but now it's at 17. Did I get those numbers right?
That's correct. So tax rate is not a direct correlation to your levy increase. And since we've done the preliminary, the county has changed the net tax capacity. So if I'd have to start screen share again here and see if I can't. Oops, not that one.
As you're pulling that up, so just to clarify, so the tax statements that we got would have reflected like
Higher number.
September's number.
20%,
Yeah.
Correct.
19% increase. But what we should expect is something much less, more like the 9%.
Correct.
Yeah, it depends on your home value too, right? The one chart,
Assuming your house value stays the same.
Correct.
correct,
That little table on the second sheet though should have a new number.
correct.
Correct.
It'll have a 8.85% instead of the whatever the number
Instead of
was.
the 19%
Yeah.
Yeah.
that we
So-
saw.
So you can see here the net tax capacity, you can see from 22, we were at 11.4 million. 23, it was just over 15 million. And now in 24, we're at 15.4, almost 15.5 million. That 24 number, the county has changed that, they keep adjusting there. So when we were looking at preliminary, I want to say that was closer to 15.9, maybe. I don't remember, 15.7. It was up, and so now it's dropped back down. So even though we dropped from a 20% levy increase to a 9% levy increase, that didn't correlate to the same kind of an adjustment over on the net tax capacity because we have less tax capacity that it's being spread out over.
Right.
So that as our tax capacity goes up, there's more property value that your levy is being spread out over, which means your
tax rate can go
does
down.
go down.
Yeah.
But as this number lowered, even though we lowered our number.
Yeah.
It didn't lower that tax rate as
Yeah.
much.
Yep,
That
okay.
makes sense.
But expectation wise, like when the final comes out, it should be more like around, more high 8-9%.
Correct.
Okay.
And just the city component, because remember, you have the county component on your.
So where it says
and
Credit
your
River.
Correct, the
school.
one line.
Right,
So
right,
you're just-
right. You're just credit.
piece
Yeah, we're
of
just Credit River.
piece
No.
of
Look for the smallest number.
This-
That's generally Credit River.
So-
Let's take that back, mosquito
Mosquito.
control,
The
is,
mosquito.
and a couple of little tiny pieces.
So I guess then my next question is, so like if what I took from this is public safety, public works are the biggest increases or changes as we become a city and act more like a city. Is that
Well, public safety would happen regardless, because we have the police and
So public safety
is police
was,
and
is
fire.
police and fire. Fire was something that's been an ongoing forever and ever. It just happened to step up into a full-time month.
but we've increased like that budget has increased, or did I not take
Yeah,
that?
but
Yes.
it's not because we're a city, it's
Fair enough.
at all.
It would have happened if we were still a township.
Gotcha.
So-
And public works is snow plowing and everything is still, we need to do all these things, whether we're a city or township.
Mhm.
Right, so I guess a couple pieces to the question. One, what is different that we need the increases for? And should we expect these similar types of increases, or did this kind of right size us? Like if this is something that we always needed, we've always had, then why the big jump? Because a 9%, I mean, yes, these dollars are not anything huge, but if we have 9%, for the next 10 years, that has to be really big, right? So just wondering, like, is this something that we are having to right size or do something different, or what is different this year? And will this continue at this rate, or is this kind of a big bump and then it's going to be more like what it has been, which has been, from what I saw in my taxes, if I take out property value increases, it's been in the 4 to 5% range every year.
Sure, if I could, one of the things one of the big changes was Prior Lakes Fire Department, of which we are contractually obligated to pay them for the services that they provide. They were having difficulty recruiting the right number of people in order to have established protection, especially during the daytime hours. So they went to a full-time model for a portion of it, and that change is actually the change in the 2024 is they started in July of 2023, so we had a 50% increase in that increase. For 2024, we're going to pay the full year, which is another 50% essentially, as opposed to what we paid last year. That won't probably change a lot. It may, because they may be doing something different, but or adding more, or the cost of protection might go up in the future. But that was really kind of a budget jump.
Yep.
That we're having to pick up this year and next year. So our anticipation would be something along the same for the next year, or whatever increases might go with that, but it wouldn't be a big
shift, which I am aware of.
Then the other thing, and so out of that, what you did gain was you gained a much better fire protection. And hopefully as time goes by, their ISO ratings for Credit River will improve. You may see something back on your fire insurance. It will give you a better response time. The other thing that we did have to add was we added our responsibility of paying for Sheriff's Department services in Credit River. We've added another shift this going forward, and that's also increasing the protection that we have.
Actually, I would say we did not, and that was the prior year.
That was
This
this year.
year, the county.
Yeah. Thanks for the correction.
Recalculated how they assess us in the past. They used to charge us the rate.
IRS.
Federal
The
IRS.
federal
per
IRS
mileage.
rate, and when they investigated it, that wasn't adequate. It didn't cover the cost. So we did have a change in methodology, but every city experienced that increase. And I think that was around, Kathy, correct me if I'm wrong, around 60,000. You were in the meetings.
Yes, it's about a $60,000 increase with the Sheriff's Department for the contract. And it is partially due to maintenance and kind of vehicle and equipment, and also the way they were looking at and charging out the administration and management kind of fees more associated with it. So we did see a $60,000 increase on that, just with recalculations that the county was doing. And those recalculations didn't just impact our Sheriff's Department contract. Those impact basically anywhere that you're doing contracts in service relationships with the county. Those adjustments are being applied. So you're seeing it in multiple locations. We're just seeing it has a higher impact on our Sheriff's Department contract.
Okay.
If I could add something, I look at it this way. I hate cost increases.
Yeah.
But it'd be incredibly more costly if we built our own fire department and we built our own police department. By far, you would hate to see your taxes if we did that.
Oh, for sure.
So we have to negotiate with the county and Prior Lake Fire Department to get the best deal we can. And it is what it is, but we're almost stuck. I mean, unless we want to take it on ourselves, and I don't think that'd be prudent at this time.
No, that makes perfect sense. And so it was more just trying to understand, there were some very specific things, and I was aware of Prior Lake in what they did with their fire department. So that makes sense. that, yes, we don't get a lot of control, but, so just more trying to understand, yeah, what's different, what's changed? Is this kind of like it was a change this year, but that change isn't going to be happening again next year. There'll be other changes, but,
Fire department will change again. It'll go up again because we'll have a full year impact as opposed to 6 months, like Jay said.
Well,
So
but
that
for
over-
25.
over year Is reflected in.
like, as we look ahead to
Right.
25, 26,
Oh,
like,
I'm saying 24.
Yeah, 24 is
Yeah,
changing,
yeah,
but
yeah.
25.
25.
It doesn't change as much.
Okay, I thought she was talking about 24. Yeah.
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 And then I think you do see a change then probably 26, because they're gonna order a replacement ladder truck.
Yep.
That's
So
in their capital improvement.
So there's
piece.
always something.
There is, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's probably a $2 million ladder truck that they're gonna order.
Oh, no, it's be more than that.
Yeah, so the capital portion of it,
Yeah,
they do present to us like what they're planning, so.
but you have to have an equipment replacement plan over time.
right.
And the way we pay for that is,
Mhm.
we would experience an increase for that kind of a purchase, the way the contract's written.
Yep.
So,
Okay.
but hopefully we can tie it back if there's a change and just say, well, it's going up by $10 and this is why we have a new ladder or
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
I don't think that they'll make the timeline on over it anyways. It's 48 months for a ladder right now.
So.
It's not happening in 26.
So, and then the only other comment I would make when we talked about the works. The council has been, in Kathy, we have a concern, we have. Snow removal and, we're on alert that our contractor. Will retire and no longer do that, so. The council has decided that we would do that internally, so that will take a few years. And because we've had difficulty over the 5, Leroy and Chris can probably comment to this. We've had contractors quit and then we're in a scramble trying to find somebody. We've had stability, so. I think in the long term, bringing it in-house, that makes more sense. We have more control.
Yeah.
Now that's something that, in the initial presentation, certainly pull them up, but we have a couple of years, Kathy. Has thought out 6+ years, I think it was 5, 6, 5+.
We've got a 5-year capital improvement plan and looking at building up, a potential for a department. Over the course of 5 years, so we're not having to do it all overnight. So we can kind of try and level out as much as possible, kind of expenses. So kind of forecasting what that could look like into the future so that we can kind of start to work at looking at that with all of the rest of the expenses that we have coming up to try and as much as possible keep things a level and consistent without seeing big spikes and ups and downs. We want to try and avoid those. So, we're trying to do that, but to provide some safety. We say when we look at public works, it's the level of service that the council wants to provide and the amount of risk that they're willing to assume in providing that. Right. If our contractors retire, they stop plowing. If we don't have the capability, a higher level of risk to the community of, can we get this streets plowed? How long would it take us to get somebody in to get the streets plowed? And those kinds of things. So trying to create some more stability and security in that one with the level of service that we're providing. Right now, like I said, looking out over the years, so it's definitely not taking it over anytime soon. So we're hoping that they stick around for a few more years.
Yeah.
But kind of gradually working that direction.
Leroy, I think you had a comment to.
Yeah, I
add on
guess
to that.
to answer Kathy's, it's not that they're gonna retire, it's to phase ours in and phase them out. Kind of together.
Mhm.
My last question is, are these documents available on the website? They are, okay, I wasn't able to,
PowerPoint.
okay,
It was sent out. as a-
So it's part of the meeting packet for tonight. So if you look in the council member agendas and packets and open the packet one, it'll be a part of that one.
okay,
You probably, after this meeting's done, you'll have to find that in the past meetings. But it's there and it
So
will
if I go
be,
to the
it'll
web-
be moved up to the budget section here shortly.
So if I go to the website, what?
If you give me your email address after the
Thank
meeting,
you.
I will send you the link.
Thank you, because I'm poking around. I wasn't finding
Yeah.
it there.
Yeah.
And it should be on the front page too. There's 3 on there right now. If you go to the third
Oh,
button of the main
Okay.
page, budget's on there.
I'll check on it.
If I can find it, you'll be able.
True.
Fair enough, fair enough. And I guess just one of the fellow, because you were talking about like in the future and as you build these things up, are there projections out there too in terms of what's expected for the city and like housing and growth? And what that looks like?
Depends on the market.
Yeah.
Yeah, depends on the market, really. You know, I say that there is some development happening now.
Mhm.
There's you know, a developer that's working on a big project in Southern Credit River right now that should bring significant value to Credit River, actually. If you really look at overall, I think there's total in Yellowstone, probably almost 100 homes. I would guess that the average value of those homes would be close to $1 million.
Bases.
Yeah,
Long
between the
phases.
phases, so, you know, take years to get there.
Right, right,
Yeah, so I'd expect the tax capacity number to grow,
right,
you know,
right. As well as the
Where-
needs, but like, yeah, if they can grow together, that
right,
is nice.
100%, right? That's
Yeah.
the nice part about being a growing community is that as needs grow and costs increase, some of that is mitigated by the additional value that's added.
For sure, for sure. Okay, thank you. Thank you
Yeah.
for putting that all together.
And we do have a model. But. That's something that would get updated in the future, like obviously you have to
Yeah.
keep putting the new numbers or like once we allot the number then we can. But Kathy has, you know, if you look back at prior meetings, like the preliminary, you can look at the presentation and it included the capital, the out years. And that kind of can give you an idea of what we're thinking in projects and that sort of thing. So I would look back at those meeting minutes and the PowerPoints that were included. And if you have questions, Kathy, let me
Okay.
know.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Just a couple of quick questions. For all the meetings that I've come to, I don't know if it's ever been discussed. I know that you guys are looking to buy some land to put the new city hall. And I would imagine that it's another year or 2 years out before you'd be able to relocate into that. But what will happen with this property? Will it be sold? Will you be hanging on to it for some unknown purpose? What's intentions with this?
Denise, I don't know we're to that point yet. We haven't really discussed that. I mean, you know, ideas could be anything from a park here to keep it for a voting precinct. Who knows?
Or sell
Or
it.
office centers.
But I don't know if it has any value to sell because you couldn't build anything here anymore.
Right.
Yeah,
It's not big enough to build anything on.
it has no septic capacity.
There really doesn't have a lot of use for it.
No.
So, okay, well, that
You
kind
couldn't
of,
build a home here.
yeah, that kind of
Yeah.
torpedoes any additional questions I would have had.
You want to buy it?
We buy it.
No. Probably not. But I guess because I was thinking if it was gonna be sold, then where does that money get pocketed into? Is it used to pay off the new facility? Does it somehow
Could be.
reduce our taxes going forward?
It would go into a Christmas party fund.
Could it-
No.
Could it be used? Could it be used just for storage of the equipment for the public works? To still utilize it in that manner to save us some money in other ways?
Denise, it's all possible.
And-
You have to get to that point first and then we can figure out what we
And as a city, do you guys pay taxes on this or are you exempt from it? as city?
Well, it is exempt, but it would be, if you can imagine what that would look like is. The revenue all comes from the residents, so then if the city then paid itself taxes on from there. It probably would make a lot of sense if we paid our own taxes. So we are exempt,
Okay, that's all.
yeah.
Good evening, council. Matt Bjork, Century Court. I'll start off this with just one comment that I'll start with the compliment sandwich. And first, thank you for the hard work that you do. Appreciate that the new proposal is only 9% versus 20%. What I don't appreciate is there's still a lack of granularity in the proposed plan. When you're talking about huge increases, 25% on public works, public safety, and a large capital investment like a new building that we don't have a real, I would say, layout for what it looks like in a time where all construction projects are being reduced. We're not seeing a lot of investment. I would ask, how does this council think that its residents or shareholders is going to respond to that type of increase as a city? The team here spoke about being toddlers and going to kindergarten, and I'm going to steal another analogy. That, well, it's a fair analogy, because as I looked at the review and a lot of this that's on the proposed budget, it seems like a toddler or kindergartner who got to see the Christmas catalog and circle every single thing they want. There's a lot in this proposal, and trying to normalize to just dollars, it's still a 9 or 20% increase with a lot of spend in areas that, working in industry, I know my board would not approve a lot of these projects right now that don't have a lot of payback. Internalizing specialized work that's only going to increase maintenance budgets in the future, that should be done by contractors who can do the work better. And if we're having a hard time negotiating with contractors, that's something we need to be more aggressive about. But I think it's somewhat short-sighted unless the council can provide some payback numbers on some of the internalization of things like snow plowing. That would probably be better suited by a contractor who has facilities, economy of scale, the ability to house the equipment that we're also trying to invest money in, and those maintenance costs that are going to be associated with it. If we're having a hard time hanging on to contractors, we're also going to need to employ city employees that would also do this work. I don't see there being a clear path to long-term retention, though city jobs are pretty desirable. I think you'll still have a lot of turnover within that department. So as I looked at the review, I saw a lot of spend that I don't think needs to be there. And one of the reasons that I thought we became a city was to control our growth. And it seems like my initial reaction was an explosion of internal government spend in a new city that now wants to have a lot of bells and whistles. We don't have an idea of what we're going to do with this property. We're going to go build a brand new property for a city of 5,500 people, 5,600 people for a government center. Corporations are not spending money on new brick and mortar facilities right now. I would ask this council to be scrappier, sharpen the pencils again, and reduce that budget proposal. Find ways to work differently versus spend dollars where we do not need them. That's all.
Thank you, Matt. Anybody else?
Yeah, Mike Haberlack, 7905 165th Street East. I sat through the, well, first of all, thanks for all your hard work, Ms. Hill, Ms. Reynolds, and council and everyone for trying to keep the budget as low as possible. Just a couple observations. I sat through the preliminary work study and the one last time for the final. There were a couple items, one specifically I remember that was put in the preliminary strategic planning. You guys had budgeted for that. And there was some pushback in the preliminary about having that. And the thought was, well, let's just put it in. Because we can always lower the budget, we can always talk about it and take it out, whatever. But at the last meeting, it was never talked about, which is fine. Maybe we need it. I don't know what happens. It probably maybe was talked about, just not at the work study. But that's just an example, because you talked about circling back, and we'll talk about the strategic planning if we need it or not. And I know it wasn't talked about at the last budget work study. So, and for all we know, we probably need it in there. I don't know. I just know that it wasn't talked about publicly. I'm sure there could have been some discussions during the budgeting process that you felt that you needed it, but that was just kind of one example that I noticed that wasn't talked about last time. But thanks for the hard work, and
It's in there.
It's still in there.
yes, it is. It is still in
I
there.
think his point was, is he said that it was talked about in the preliminary, but we didn't talk about it at the work session 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And
That was his point,
yes.
of whether or not that was, $25,000 well spent or not to keep in the budget. I think is.
And I'm fine with it. It was a point of topic that wasn't brought up last time, but just a note on my part.
Mike, I think, we, in the survey that was presented to us and everything, we were, needing to do a little bit more planning.
Yes.
And so if we took it out of the budget, then we wouldn't be able to do it.
Okay.
And this way, at least it's there, and we can kind of decide merits of how much to spend, if all of it or less than all of it, at the time that we can spend it. So, just that was part of the thing, is like we're trying to look forward to at least do planning and everything else.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Mike. Yeah. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. So at that, hearing no more conversation, I take a motion to close the truth and taxation public hearing.
So moved.
Thank you, Bill.
I'll second.
Thank you, Abe. So I've got a motion and a second to close the truth and taxation hearing for the 2024 budget and levy. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. Now, I see we don't have a resolution drafted in our packet tonight. So are we planning on putting the resolution in the 18th?
The resolution will be in the packet on the 18th, yes.
Okay. Perfect. So I think unless somebody has. Did you have another
I'll
comment?
make the motion to adjourn.
Well, I don't think we're quite there yet. We've got one more item on the agenda, which is staff and council member reports, if anybody has anything. Did you have something, Kathy?
If I can go real quick, just to as a notice for the council members, my contract called for the 6-month performance evaluation. We are at that 6-month mark. So I did send this evening before the meeting the evaluation form to the council members to kind of get that prepared. We will do put a closed session on the agenda for the next meeting for that performance evaluation. So that one's coming up. Just kind of make a note of that and look for that in your email so you can get that completed. And then just a reminder, next week, non-standard meeting night, but December 11th, next Monday, we do have a special meeting for the council for the CSTS budgets and the going over their budgets in the proposed rates that will have. So that is December 11th. 5 o'clock will be the Monterey Heights South Passage, 6 o'clock Stonebridge, and 7 o'clock Territories. So just a reminder, we have that one coming up, and then we'll still have the regular scheduled meeting on December 18th. And the last one I have is we did approve the 2024 meeting schedule, and I just wanted to verbalize, since that was on the consent agenda, is I do recommend people look at it because of holidays and various other elections and other things happening in 2024. we do have a lot of non-standard meetings scheduled, so instead of first and third Mondays, some months we have second and fourth Mondays, other ones we jump to a Tuesday or a Wednesday, so please do look at that calendar and pay attention to it, because there are some variables there.
So to that point, we should be able to get the website's calendar updated fairly quickly. Can we get all the meeting invites sent out to council members and planning commission members before the end of the month,
We will work on
for the whole
getting
year?
all of that put together and out, but yeah. So we'll get council taken care of that way. We'll get the website, work on getting that one updated, but just wanted to make sure the public heard that as well, to
Yep.
pay attention to those dates. They're not standard for 2024.
Okay, Abe, do you have anything?
Just met with the construction managers today, so
Okay.
long day.
Yeah, I bet. Leroy, anything?
Oh, yeah, it would be nice for him to grade the roads one more time.
Okay.
Freezes up completely, so.
Perfect. I got a couple things here. Friday, we had the scale exec meeting. A couple things you might want to pay attention to. Next Friday's scale meeting, there's going to be a presentation on some of the new campaign finance laws that was passed in the last legislation that might require us to register as lobbyists. By the way, or any
Council members?
potentially, or businesses doing business with cities. Some of our contractors, some of our people may have to register as lobbyists. We're gonna learn more about that next week. Mayor Franklin from Jordan is putting together a presentation as he's in that business and understands it a little bit more of what that law could look like there. Another piece is that the county is gonna study health insurance studies. So the county right now is self-insured as for their health insurance, and they're gonna look to see what that would look like if they were to allow other municipalities in the county, you know, like other cities, other towns, or anything like that, that need that, would it make sense to let them into that self-insured pool? So we should know something about that in the first part of next year. Additionally, emergency management training for elected officials, they're working to put together something for next year. It's probably be about a 10-hour training course, probably broken up into 2 5-hour sessions at some point. So just stay tuned. The details are still being worked out on that. Then kind of the big thing, January 9th. So as you all know, the legislature of last year had put together a task force to study changes to the structure of the Met Council. That task force is going to be hearing testimony at the Scott County Commissioners Chambers on January 9th. Be one of the things where it'd be good for us to testify in that. Scale will probably testify in that along with other cities, so we'll probably put something together. I'd be happy to deliver that testimony during that time. But kind of a neat deal that's happening here in Scott County. Of course, that's a little bit that's headed up because Senator Pratt is on that committee, that task force. So those are kind of
I have 3 words for the testimony. Leave us alone.
Yeah.
So that's all I got. Jay, anything? Bill?
No.
No? All right, Dominique, anything?
Um,
It doesn't have to be. You look like
no,
surprised.
no, sorry.
It's going around the table in a nice clockwise
Just in
fashion.
terms of the resolution, and we would get indications like if you want to, you know, from the input from the community and everything, if you want the numbers to hold, and we would prepare the resolution that way, or I'm assuming that it is, but that would be something we need.
Mhm.
Just comment, like if you wanted anything wiggle or changed,
Okay,
so.
sounds good.
I make the motion.
You can.
Thank you.
I'll second it.
Leroy seconds it. Motion and a second to adjourn. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed?